they weren't excited because it was more for them to do. And our folks, like all of the EVS technicians across the way, and all of us, we all work hard. And this was just another step, but they did understand the why. And so we really hit hard that this is going to create an atmosphere that's going to be better for the patients and the families that come next. So they did it, but there were some issues with the anytime you spray a chemical in the air, that's never really what that chemical was made to do, especially when you're talking about hospital grade disinfectants. One of the things that I've always been intrigued with UVC was the cleanness, maybe the greenness of the not only the machine itself, but also the fact that when you're done, we're not really changing anything. We're not putting more chemicals in the air. It's very green, and so that was a big thing for me personally. But also when I started doing my research within the last few years, what I found is when I first started researching this 12 years ago, the companies were few and far between who manufactured good quality UV light machines. Therefore, it was very expensive to purchase one. And I knew with a hospital our size, if they're going to work, we needed to have multiple machines in multiple locations to make it very easy for our staff to get a hand on one, get it in the room, and utilize it. And so that's when we began doing our research with UV, and we found R0 as a company, and we've been working with them ever since. I think for me, it all boiled down to safety. I take my role as director seriously in the sense of it's my job to protect not only our patients, not only our families, not only our visitors, but also the employees that we have. In the past, because of a lot of maybe we'll just say health conditions of various people, anytime you spray anything in the air, it can cause discomfort to a certain amount of people. I wanted to stop that. And what a beautiful alternative to simply use light to do a better job of what we were trying to do with spraying chemicals in the air. And that to me was really the determining factor. It wasn't price, it wasn't all of the other things that are, while very important, for me, it all boiled down to safety. Safety, of course, first and foremost for our patients and families, but then also it was a very safe alternative to the spraying of chemicals for our staff members themselves. I would say about 5 minutes a room. And while that doesn't sound like a lot, when you consider 150 discharges a day, that's 750 minutes. We've saved, 12 hours of time or more. So it really does make us more efficient. We find we're having less beds left over on the end of the night, turned over the next morning that we just didn't have enough time or people to clean them all. We find those numbers are much smaller than they were previously. Oh yeah, we've probably saved about 15 to 20% in our chemical costs because we're no longer filling those sprayers up. And as we all know, nobody just wants to put a little in anything. We always got to fill it up to the top. But then within 24 hours, you got to dump all that out and refill it again. So we've seen a lot less waste, a lot less usage of water. And then, of course, just the sheer usage of chemical has gone down. Good question. That was actually one of the things that was foundational for us in our decision to utilize R0 for UVC. Again, I can't speak to what all the other companies do. I can just speak to what we saw. R0's platform of getting data is nothing short of remarkable to me. I can find any machine at any moment, tell you the last time down to the second that it was turned on, how long it was for, and what room it happened to be in. It is a great platform, and it makes my life really easy when I'm questioned to say, hey, room 21, 2105 was a C. diff room. I want to verify that it was treated with UV light. I can easily go to the dashboard, find that room, tell them exactly where it was, exactly what time it was treated, and how long the cycle was. So that platform has been a real godsend in a sense for us because it made my life a whole lot easier for research on disinfection protocols. Oh, very much so. Our plan right now is we have just recently purchased 25 more ARC machines, and they are in the process of getting set up and programmed for each individual unit of this hospital. So as right now, we're using them in key areas and isolation rooms. The eventual goal is to have every discharge room treated with UV light. Then, and every OR every night treated with UV light. Every cath lab every night treated with UV light. And as the data begins to then show what we all hope for, lower infection rates, lower length of stay, all of those sorts of things, then we're already in conversations with our sterile processing department in utilizing some of the other UVC technology. I believe the items are called, it's like a far UV. I think there's a product called a Beam and maybe a product called a Vibe are the two that are there. So trying to utilize those in our SPD, maybe in waiting rooms, some things like that, in order to keep everyone safer, not just those patients who are inside the room, but utilizing them in other key areas, lobbies, waiting areas, things like that, in order to protect our community. Yeah, infection prevention does, of course, most of those reports and things like that. But the one that they are most concerned on right now is, I believe they're called site infections in operating rooms. And especially in like orthopedic cases, things like that. They're very susceptible, I guess, to surgical site infections. And that is something that they are looking at. And then that could also expand that use because we also have two or three surgery centers apart from Carle Foundation Hospital. And then the goal would be then if we see a reduction in surgical site infections here at the hospital, we can also utilize UVC then in those other areas as well. First of all, find the right company that fits your goals and ideals. For Carle, that was our zero. We fit very, very well together. And to be bold, I'd encourage you to look at our zero, please, just to give them an opportunity, and maybe you'll feel the same way that I did in working with them. But you don't have to buy 25 of them or 30 of them at your first order. Start with a couple and use them in places where infection prevention says we're having issues. When we started, we simply bought 5. 2 of them ended up in the ORs, and all they did was orthopedic surgical suites. That's it. But we saw results that led us to understand this technology is working. Therefore, that order of 5 turned into an order of 25 about 18 months later.